Today we're going to be looking at the Great Recession versus the coronavirus recession and just the different effects and the causes that went through and just analyzing the similarities and differences that the two have as well. So, what is a recession? A recession is decline in the GDP product for two or more consecutive quarters of a year, and also preceded by several quarters of slowing down, a result of reduction in demand of products in the global market. So when did the Great Recession take place? It took place in December 2007 and ended in June 2009, around the time period of an election year as well, and was first under George W. Bush, followed by Barack Obama. So when did the coronavirus recession take place? The coronavirus is declared a national pandemic in March 2020, and this is followed by precautionary stay-at-home orders. The global stock market crashed on 20th of February 2020, and the economic effects start to trickle down after. And just like I said, this is under presidency by Donald Trump and then followed by Joe Biden. Causes of the Great Recession include the subprime mortgage crisis, and that was one of the main causes of the event. And it can be seen as one of the worst financial crises since the Great Depression. And it impacted homes and businesses across America. And the housing market was booming, so lenders, which were the banks, were handing out loans at higher interest. This leads to a housing bubble where demand is down and prices are dropped. Um, the coronavirus recession is also known as a worst global economic crisis since the Great Depression. The spread of the COVID-19 virus was the main cause of this, and it mandated the stay-at-home orders, really affecting the economy. And the COVID-19 is a really impactive pandemic, and compared to the Spanish flu in 1918. The effect people were no longer able in the Great Recession, people were no longer able to pay off mortgages or sell their houses. Nearly 4 million homes were foreclosed each year. The housing market failed and banks totally collapsed. People and businesses suffered huge losses in return for spent less money, really hurting the economy as far as that. The coronavirus recession, the stay-at-home orders clearly affect many of the types of businesses and those people in in-person services. Some of those include retail stores, restaurants, and beauty salons and spas. Many households face problems as far as food and housing, as you can see in the graphs here. For 1 in 9 adults with children, household lacked sufficient food in the last 7 days, and this could be seen through the different studies that have been shown. Unemployment. More than 8 million Americans lost their jobs during the Great Recession, and the peak of 10.6 in January in 2010 as far as unemployment. And there was many layoffs during this time as the housing and the insurance companies had to lay off due to the mistakes that they had made throughout the economy. And this targeted people in the construction field making these houses, and which were normally people of color and lower income people. The coronavirus recession unemployment rate jumped in April 2020 to a level not seen since 1930. In the Great Recession, 8.6 million jobs were lost during the entire recession, and more than 20 million jobs were lost in just 1 month during the COVID recession. And just looking at the statistics as far as race, about 10% of Black workers and 8% of Latino workers were affected as far as unemployment compared to the 5.5% of white workers. And out of these workers, they reported to have a job, but they were without pay, as their employer had to they had no business because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just looking at GDP, the Great Recession was notably severe, and it fell 4.3% from its peak in 2007 quarter four through 2009 quarter two. It cast a long shadow over the economic expansion, and they improved but slowly. And it took us several years for the economy began closing in full employment. For the coronavirus recession, they predict that major economies will lose at least 2.9% of their GDP, historic numbers during a single quarter, as entire economy was shut down for nearly 4 months. And we have a really consumer-driven economy, and as consumers stayed home, this really affected the whole GDP process. As far as recovery, the economy began growing in 2009 and averaged 2.2% annual growth in the Great Recession, and it really followed high government spending, and it was the nation was stimulated through the Recovery Act under Obama in 2009, and increased employment by nearly 2.5 million and prevented millions of Americans falling into poverty. And it's kind of seen as a U-shaped recovery. Although it did get up, it did happen over time, and that leads us to the next part. The coronavirus recession is seen, and hopefully as a V-shape because of the progress towards the vaccine that has been allowed for the Americans to be used by. Excuse me. And as, just like the previous recession, they're aiding and stimulating the economy through just different acts. And the Senate passed a 1.9 trillion fiscal stimulus package containing direct checks for millions of Americans and extending supplemental jobs and aid. And government spending was really seen there. And like I previously mentioned, the V-shaped recovery is promoted by that. In conclusion, the two recessions seem very similar. Um, Both were different just because of the causes. As far as what happened, one was a virus, and one was which was caused by natural human decisions throughout the economy. And opening of the economy really helps towards towards the progress of fixing the recession. And in conclusion, final message of both are really encased by fear and worry, and so that's why these have major similar points, is because of the fear that was presented through the Great Recession. Many fear that they and lose their money in these situations, and through the COVID-19 recession, many feared of the COVID-19 virus, and so they would stay at home and really delay the process of consumer and production. And as we both continue to gain information of the effects, as these both happened in the past 2 decades, we further understand the comparisons and how everything played a part. This is my works cited. Thank you for watching.